Good afternoon. My name is Buffy. I'm a 17-year plus criminal defense attorney, and I will be providing legal analysis where it presents itself. Today we're talking about John Wayne Gacy, respectability, denial, and the danger of familiarity. When evil looks useful, there is a particular kind of danger that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't stalk dark alleys. It doesn't inspire fear at first glance. It doesn't disrupt the social order. It reinforces it. John Wayne Gacy was not frightening because he hid in the shadows. He was frightening because he stood in plain sight, and people were relieved by that. This is not a story about a monster hiding behind a costume. It's a story about how respectability itself can become a mask, and how badly we want to believe that the familiar is safe. Who he was allowed to be. John Wayne Gacy was known as a man who participated. He ran a business. He employed young men. He volunteered. He hosted parties. He involved himself in local politics. He wasn't merely tolerated. He was useful. And usefulness is one of the strongest forms of social protection. When someone contributes, people hesitate to question them. When someone is visible in good ways, doubt feels ungrateful. Gacy understood this instinctively. The comfort of roles. Gacy didn't need charm in the Bundy sense. He relied on roles. Business owner, community volunteer, political participant, entertainer. Because all of these things gave him credibility, gave him likability, made people trust him. And trust was his weapon of choice. At times, even a clown, a symbol meant to disarm fear. These weren't costumes meant to deceive in isolation. They were social signals that told others, you don't need to be on guard here, I'm safe. And most people listened. Warning signs that should have ended this facade. This is the part of the story where the question isn't what went wrong, but what was ignored. Gacy had already been convicted of a sexual offense involving a teenage boy years earlier. He had served time. That fact alone should have radically restricted his access to vulnerable people, especially in a clown costume, especially doing parties and being near children. Instead, it was minimized, compartmentalized, and quietly set aside. When later concerns emerged, Gacy reframed them as lies, misunderstandings, attempts to extort him, young men trying to shake him down. And again, people accepted the explanation, not because it was all right, airtight, but because believing him was easier than confronting the implications. And if you think about it, Gacy was like Jekyll and Hyde. And confronting him would have probably put that person toe-to-toe with Gacy's alter ego, which was explosive, violent, and dangerous. Why the mask didn't slip. Gacy's mask didn't hold because he was especially convincing. It held because people didn't want it to slip. To acknowledge the truth would have meant admitting prior failure, questioning judgment, confronting how many warning signs were missed, accepting that harm had been allowed. Denial becomes attractive when accountability feels overwhelming. And so, the system hesitated. Political proximity and perceived legitimacy. Gacy was not an elected official, but he was politically involved enough to borrow legitimacy. Photographs, connections, visibility. For many, this proximity implied vetting. A quiet assumption that someone so embedded couldn't possibly be dangerous. This is how perception replaces proof. He didn't need power, he needed credibility. And credibility, once granted, is rarely revoked without force. Private violence, public normalcy. The most disturbing aspect of Gacy's story isn't just what happened behind closed doors. It's the contrast. By day, he moved through society without resistance. By night, he exercised absolute control over those he had invited into his home. The mask didn't come off in public. It came off only when privacy, trust, and authority were secured. This wasn't impulsive violence. It was calculated exploitation of access and the system's slow response. When the truth finally emerged, the reaction was shock, followed by disbelief that it had taken so long. But the delay wasn't mysterious. It was built into the structure. Institutions are slow to act when accusations threaten expectations. Evidence disrupts comfort. Victims lack status, and perpetrators appear useful. Gacy's case is not just about individual evil. It's about collective hesitation. So in closing, the danger of what feels safe. John Wayne Gacy forces us to confront a truth that remains deeply uncomfortable. The most dangerous people are not always the ones who stand apart. Sometimes they are the ones most fully integrated. Respectability does not prevent harm. Familiarity does not guarantee safety. And participation does not equal morality. And when communities confuse involvement with innocence, harm doesn't just occur, it is protected. This case isn't about a man who fooled everyone. It's about a system that mistook comfort for security and paid that price for that mistake. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you'll come back and see us again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.